I think there is a version of gear acquisition syndrome that nobody really talks about, where you don't chase the most expensive thing, but you chase the most convenient one. That's kind of how I ended up with this. I wanted this camera bad, the size, the convenience, just being able to slip it into a pocket and go. That the idea really got to me. But after shooting about 1,000 shots with it, I started feeling something I didn't expect. A quiet regret, maybe, not because it's a bad camera, but because I already have my Pentax. And the Pentax does things this camera simply can't. So I had to be honest with myself about what this camera actually is in my life. It's a backup. It's the one I grab on days when bringing the K10D just feels like too much. And once I accepted that, I started appreciating it a lot more for what it is, rather than resenting it for what it isn't. So let me tell you what this camera actually is on paper first. You are looking at a 13 megapixel CMOS sensor on a 3/8" sensor body paired with a 26mm equivalent f2.0 fixed focus lens made up of 5 elements. It shoots stills up to 4160 by 3120, records 1080p video at up to 60 frames per second, and has a 2.8-inch LCD that tilts all the way up 180 degrees. ISO range goes from 100 to 1600, shutter speed from 2 seconds all the way to 1/10,000th second, and you get around 200 shots per charge from the built-in battery, which charges over USB-C about 2.5 hours. It takes micro SD cards up to 32GB, though I put it in a 64GB card and it worked just fine. It weighs just 115 grams and comes in at about 103 by 60 by 20 millimeters. Retails around $120. That's the whole spec sheet. What drew me to it first was how small it is. Just genuinely pocket-sized. I could throw it in my bag, forget it was there, and find it again later like a little surprise. And that matters to me more than people might think, because the camera you actually carry is worth more than the one sitting at home because you were worried about scratching it. I've been down that road before and I know what it does to you. One thing I also quietly appreciated, the lens doesn't retract. It just sits there fixed. And I know that sounds like nothing, but if you've ever owned a compact where the lens extends every time you power it on, you know that mechanism is almost always the first thing to go. There is something reassuring about a camera that doesn't have that vulnerability. It just feels more honest somehow. The flip screen is probably the most charming thing about this camera. It tilts all the way around so you can see yourself when you are shooting, which sounds like a small thing until you are actually using it. It gives the camera a clear identity, like it knows who it's for, and there's something I appreciate about the camera that knows what it is. Now, image quality, I want to be real with you here, the way I always try to be. I shoot this at ISO 100 in good light pretty much every time. And when you do that, when you respect what the camera actually needs, it rewards you. The colors come out punchy and clean, the kind of images that look great on your phone screen or printed small. The f2.0 lens pulls in light well, and for casual everyday moments, it delivers. One thing worth knowing though, this camera doesn't have a manual mode. You are working with program mode only, which gives you control over ISO and exposure compensation, and that's it. It doesn't shoot RAW, though I don't shoot RAW anyway, just worth noting if that matters to you. In low light situations, the camera tends to push exposure really hard to a point where I find it overexposes to my liking. If you are shooting indoors, you might want to tune it down and underexpose it a little bit. It makes a noticeable difference, but I won't pretend it's doing something my phone can. And that's something I've had to sit with, honestly. Sometimes I pick this up and the colors, the rendering, the whole look, it just feels like my phone. Well, it feels the same as my phone, probably also because of the focal length, apart from the color and look that it produces, especially in vivid mode. There are also some basic filters built in, like vivid, sepia, black and white, retro, normal, partial color, sketch, and negative. Nothing groundbreaking, but they are fun to play with straight out of camera. And that's a strange feeling because the whole reason I reach for a dedicated camera is to get something different from my phone, something my phone cannot give me. My Pentax K10D does that without question. The way the camera renders color with my settings, there is just no comparison. It gives me something I genuinely cannot replicate on a phone. The Pixpro C1 doesn't always do that for me. I want to be upfront about it. But nevertheless, I love capturing my family moments more with the Pentax rather than this tiny Kodak C1. Bisa sih. Nevertheless, some of my favorite shots were actually taken with this camera. And even though it sometimes feels like my phone, at least it inspires me more to shoot than my phone does. There is something about holding a dedicated camera, even a cheap one, that just puts you in a different headspace. And if I really want to get a look my phone cannot do, I can always push the ISO, crank it up to 1600 or whatever, and suddenly I'm getting something grainy and unique that no phone camera would give me straight out of the box. The focal length is another thing I keep noticing. It's 26mm equivalent, which is quite wide, and coming from spending so much time with a 35mm on the K10D, which is already roughly 50mm equivalent on APS-C, this lens can feel almost too open sometimes. Like I have to work harder to compose the way I naturally see. It's not a deal breaker, but it's an adjustment I still find myself making. The flash is not really that powerful considering how tiny this camera is. But it's nice to have rather than nothing. You need to be quite close to your subject to get that proper flash look. And even then, it's definitely not as pleasing as the flash on my K10D. That one just has a different quality to it. This one does the job in a pinch, but don't come in expecting much. And then there is the video, which is genuinely terrible. And I love it for that. There is this degraded lo-fi quality to the footage that no filter on your phone can convincingly fake. It feels like something pulled from a memory rather than recorded in prison. That nostalgic texture, that's the one thing this camera does that my phone absolutely cannot. And sometimes that alone is enough reason to bring it along. Battery life honestly impressed me. About 200 shots on a charge, or around an hour and a half of video, topping up over USB-C in about 2.5 hours. I only needed to charge it once over several days of casual shooting. For a camera this size and price, that felt generous and practical. Here's what I keep coming back to though. This camera doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't make you feel like you need to protect it or justify using it or shoot something worthy of it. You just pick it up and go. The convenience is real. And for a certain kind of day, a certain kind of mood, and that's exactly what you need. Is it a replacement for something like the K10D? For me, no, absolutely not. Not even close. The Pentax give me images that feels like mine, that have a character I can't get anywhere else, but the Pixpro C1 feels a different space. It's the camera I bring when I don't want a thing, when I just want something small in my pocket, and that wonderfully broken video as a bonus. And honestly, after having this for a while, I think that's exactly the direction I'm heading. Doing more video with this camera, leaning into that terrible quality on purpose. There is something freeing about that. Would I recommend it though? Honestly, no. For the same price, just get an old DSLR. You'll probably do your money much better. This camera has its charm, and I don't regret having it, but I also can, in good conscience, tell someone to buy it when there are better options at the same price point. But if you have free money flying around, spend without thinking, give it a try. You might regret it, or you might not. That's kind of the fun of it. What do you think? I guess I'll see you in the next video. Keep sniping and keep it budget tight. Au revoir.